All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this month's Department of the Navy Oracle Technology Spotlight. For today's topic, we will be discussing Oracle Database 23 AI, the next level in data management. My name is J.R. Lazo, and I'm the Oracle Account Manager supporting the Department of Navy here at TD SYNNEX Public Sector. Before we get started, wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. For Don customers on NMCI, we recommend using the Zoom link to view the slides. If dialing in, Zoom features will not be available. All lines will be muted during the presentation. If you have any questions during the presentations, please enter them in the Q&A chat box. We will address them throughout the presentation. In addition, we will also have a Q&A towards the end of the presentation, and you can ask your questions then. If you are having any technical issues, please message Felicia Cortez or the panelists via Zoom chat. The tech spotlight will be recorded, and a copy of the recording will be made available next week on the DOT Marketplace. If you would like a copy of this brief sent to you directly, please enter your name and email in the chat section, and we will provide you a copy once it's available. So a quick review of today's agenda. To lead off, I will be providing a brief overview of the non-Oracle 3 Enterprise Software Agreement. Then Daryl McGowan, Solutions Architect with Oracle, will be discussing Oracle Database 23 AI, which is the most recent version of Oracle Database released earlier this year. And following that, we will open up the floor to Q&A. So a quick overview of the Oracle 3 Enterprise Agreement. In May 2023, NAVSUP awarded DOT an enterprise software agreement for Oracle licenses and services for a 5-year term. Authorized users of this agreement is the Department of Navy, including U.S. Marine Corps and approved contractor support, who have a valid SUP letter of authorization. The managing activity for this agreement is PEO Digital Enterprise IT Strategic Sourcing Program, or PMW 290. At the bottom of the slide, you will find a link to the DOT Marketplace, which is not only where this recording will be made available, but will also have information and resources on how to leverage the Oracle Enterprise Software. So the Enterprise Software Agreement can be broken down into two distinct parts: the Unlimited License Agreement and the Agency Catalog. In regards to the Unlimited License Agreement, authorized users have access to unlimited use of Oracle core technology licenses, including maintenance and support of these licenses. Core tech licenses include all versions of Oracle Database, Advanced Security, WebLogic Suite, and Database Management Packs. The Unlimited License Agreement is centrally funded by the Department of the Navy. In other words, what typically would cost $60,000 for a single server license of Oracle Database is now a $0 ITPR as part of this agreement. Navy users can obtain access to these licenses by submitting a Memorandum of Agreement, or MOA for short, through the DOT Marketplace. In regards to the agency catalog, Navy customers can procure most of Oracle's remaining software licenses and cloud services that are not part of the Unlimited License Agreement at a pre-negotiated discount via the agency catalog, which is fixed pricing through May 2028. Authorized customers can request a quote for Oracle licenses and subscriptions available on the catalog by reaching out to the Navy Oracle team at DLT directly. As a reminder, per the Don CIO, the Oracle 3 Enterprise Agreement is a mandated source of supply, where all Don organizations and programs are required to use this agreement for their Oracle needs in order to achieve maximum cost savings through May 2028. This slide provides some key benefits of the Oracle 3 Enterprise Software Agreement. I won't read into each one in detail, but there are a few I wanted to highlight. First, it improves the Department of Navy's buying and negotiation power for maximum discounts and cost avoidance. It also provides a centralized ordering via the DOT Marketplace/Oracle portal, which enables greater visibility, oversight, and control over software procurements. It also eliminates the requirement for justification approval, or JNAs, for catalog purchases at the ordering level. The last key point I want to highlight pertains to licensing virtual environments. The Dawn Oracle Enterprise Software Agreement allows Dawn customers to reduce costs by using virtual processor cores as a license boundary for Oracle software license calculations. This slide provides an overview of what Oracle software is available on the ULA and the agency catalog. To reiterate, in order to gain access to licenses available on the unlimited license agreement, which are the licenses listed on the left-hand side of the slide, you would need to submit a MOA through the DLT marketplace. To procure licenses on the agent catalog, i.e. the licenses on the right-hand side, you would start by reaching out to the Navy team at DLT. This slide provides additional details on who are authorized users of the Oracle 3 Enterprise Agreement. In summary, all Department of Navy organizations or principal elements of the Navy can leverage the contract, except for when the Navy is serving as a Department of Defense executive agent, an entity which the Navy is serving as a DoD combatant command support agent, or Navy Special Access Programs. This slide has a link to the DLT marketplace and a screenshot of the homepage. If you need any assistance with accessing the portal/DLT marketplace, please reach out to the Navy Oracle team at DLT. And with that said, that concludes the Oracle 3 Enterprise Software Agreement overview. Next up, you will be hearing from Daryl McGowan, who will be discussing Oracle Database 23i, the next level in data management. Daryl, take it away.
Thanks a lot. All right, can you see my screen okay?
I don't
Not yet.
believe so.
Let me redo that and share. There we go.
Got it.
All right. Yeah, my name is Daryl McGowan. I'm a solutions architect at Oracle, the Government Defense and Intelligence Group. Been with Oracle a little over 28 years, so I've pretty much grown up here. And I've seen a lot of changes and evolutions and innovations throughout that entire time. And this is probably one of the biggest ones. There's been a lot that we've integrated into the database, but adding in AI and a lot of automation really is a game changer. So I'm going to highlight a lot of those. I'll be talking pretty quickly. So feel free to just interrupt me with any questions or put it in the chat. And JR or David or Tim, if you can just let me know what some of the questions are that are being asked. Of course, we'll be providing these slides, as we mentioned earlier, or you can contact me offline. But I'm really excited to talk about some of the features today in 23AI. So as I mentioned, I've been with Oracle for a long time, not since its inception. I'm not quite that old yet, but Oracle's been around since, at least in its infancy, since 77. And I'm not going to go through all the different features that we've added throughout time, but I do want to kind of highlight, kind of a common thread as we go through here, is you'll see things like clustering and being able to do ACID transactions, being able to add in active data guard where we're doing a lot of things online, sharding. What was the ones? Advanced compression. All these are things that we've kind of added over time. They've built on top of each other. And what I've always found interesting is there's a lot of other database products out there from other vendors, and they're still lacking some of the basic capabilities, such as being able to do row level locking and read consistency. That's a big issue for for example, Postgres users. Being able to do, running across a cluster of servers. That's something that's very unique to Oracle. So that way you can scale and have high availability across multiple nodes, all sharing the same data files. But for those who haven't been keeping up to date with the most current releases, because I'm sure a lot of folks are still on 12C, unfortunately, and the majority are probably on 19C. So let me just kind of, with 12C, we added in something called sharding. So that's where you basically create a distributed database where you split the database into multiple shards or partitions, and can have those essentially replicated across different servers scattered around the globe, for example, giving you high availability, but also moving the data closer to users. There's pluggable database. So we actually added that, again, with 12c, where you have a container database that hosts multiple pluggable databases. And so that whole multi-tenant architecture has evolved quite a bit. So we'll highlight a little bit of that. But you may have heard that the traditional architecture, where you just have essentially a single PDB, that no longer exists. So now every database that you create is a multi-tenant database. You don't have to purchase multi-tenant, which is a database option, unless you go beyond three pluggable databases. Again, that's a whole topic for another conversation. But that's just something to note, as you go further with 23AI, that it is a multi-tenant database. What else do I want to highlight? Automatic indexing is a very cool feature. Active Data Guard with its ability to redirect DML. That's also a great feature. What else? Blockchain tables. That's a new capability that came out with 19C. Then 21C was a short-lived innovation release. Short-lived. It's still got another year of support. So we've added in a lot of capabilities there. I'll be highlighting all these capabilities because a lot of folks didn't go to 21C because that's an innovation release. So I'll be talking about those as well as the 300 other new capabilities that were added with 23AI. Okay, so if I had to boil everything down to one slide, this would probably be it. And this is, again, a 1,000-mile view of what 23 AI is all entailed of. But there's a lot of different things in here. At the heart, what we focused on was artificial intelligence. That's what I'll spend most of my time today talking about. But also another cool capability is JSON relational duality, the ability to be able to handle JSON documents natively inside the Oracle database. And then there's a handful of other kind of cats and dogs capabilities like JavaScript programming inside the database, providing a true cache that's distributed across multiple servers to provide high-speed access, read-only access to data. Property graphs, another cool capability where you'll be able to do graphs inside the database. SQL firewall, which is essentially an embedded network firewall inside the database. So a lot that we're going to talk about. I'll try to go through them as quickly as I can because I mean, like I said, there's hundreds of new features and then, thousands of enhancements on top of all these. Okay, so first of all, we kind of went through the timeline of Oracle and some of the new features, but here's the support timeline. So right now, in our time in history, we're right here in 2024. So the only supported databases currently are 19C, 21C, which is the innovation release, and 23AI. There's no longer any support for 11 or 12. With that said, there is something called upgrade support. Basically, all that is that you can contact us, Oracle, to help you with the upgrade to move to 19C or 23AI. We'll provide any bug fixes that you need, but basically not hands-on, but remote support to help you upgrade to the latest releases. So Premier support is still available for 19C all the way through April of 2026. So that gives you, a little less than 2 years. For some, that's plenty of time. For others, that's not quite enough time. Before you need to move to 23AI. 23AI was released mid last year. It first came out within the Oracle Cloud. And even before that, there was a developer release. And as I mentioned earlier, too, a lot of those features were in the 21C innovation release. So a lot of those capabilities that you've probably been waiting for with 19C, you can play with today on 21C or in the Oracle Cloud. Today, in addition to being available in the Oracle Cloud, it's available on all Oracle engineered systems. So that includes the Oracle Database Appliance and Oracle Exadata. Hopefully you guys are familiar with those. If not, I would love to come back to talk to you about those products. Because I mean, ever since Oracle acquired Sun Microsystems, uh, almost 15 years ago, those have been my favorite products. We've really been able to, build engineered systems from the CPU and the silicon all the way up to the software and the applications. So 23AI will be available, Premier support all the way through the beginning of 2029. So plenty of road there for you to be able to leverage those capabilities. Any questions so far? All right. Okay, so let's talk about AI, focusing first on what the AI is all about. As I said earlier, AI is really the key parts. AI and ML, those have been kind of, tag words that have been thrown around quite a bit. A lot of people think it's a lot of hype, but no, there's a lot of power, a lot to be gained, especially when you make it easy to consume. Because at this, because at the bottom of it, there's a lot of bits and bytes, a lot of data science, and there's a lot of end users that aren't familiar with how to leverage different models and algorithms. So what we've done with Oracle database is we've made it easy by first of all embedding a lot of the algorithms inside the database by providing new operators and data types, such as the AI vector, and then also being able to provide the models to be able to generate new models. So let's talk about, first of all, the in-database models, or algorithms rather. So Oracle acquired data, what was it called? Uh, Thinking machines, that's what it's called. Thinking machines a long time ago. And we were able to take all the algorithms and embed them inside the database. Because normally what you would do is you would take the data over to a middle tier server that does the data mining. But instead, we've brought the algorithms to the data. So that way you're not having to move data around. Um, and that's obviously a great thing. So, from a security perspective, but also from a storage perspective. And then you can leverage all the power of the database, all the CPUs and the optimizations that it provides. Huge list of algorithms that have here. We've added even some additional ones with 23AI. So that includes something called MSET, SPRT. This is a great run for being able to do anomaly detection, where we're actually monitoring multiple signals. It could be dozens or hundreds of signals that we're monitoring all simultaneously, rather than just looking at one and finding, an anomaly in just one signal. We're basically aggregating the patterns across multiple signals. So that gives you just far better precision at being able to detect events or potential events before they occur and minimizing false alarms. Then there's XGBoost and Atom Optimization Solver, which leverage neural networks. But again, we're just adding more and more machine learning into the database for you to use. Another interesting fact is the Oracle database itself leverages some of these algorithms to monitor itself when it comes to being able to proactively identify if there's an issue and be able to remedy that issue. For example, with monitoring the performance of SQL. Let's see. I got a lot of slides. I'll be skipping through some of them quickly, but let me just quickly go over this one. For those, Python's a very popular language. Python and JavaScript are probably the most popular languages today, in addition to Java. So for the Python developers out there, we've created an interface for you to be able to leverage, being able to create models inside the Oracle database. So if you're using a Jupyter Notebook or something like this, Python, you can basically transparently create Python functions, and we'll translate that into SQL for you. Okay, now getting to one of the cool features, AI vectors. So this may be kind of a new concept to folks, but let me try to explain what a vector is. So vectors go beyond just looking at varchars or characters or numbers where we're looking at unstructured information. Might be an image, might be a video, might be a full-blown document, might be a binary. What we do is we decompose that into a sequence of numbers. They basically are their dimensions that represent a feature of the object that we're analyzing. And so there's a variety of different tools that are used to generate the vectors, and then you're searching against the vectors. So let me kind of make that a little bit easier to understand. So for example, if you have a house, it's got different features, right? Type of roof, decoration, stories, building materials, the color of the color of the house, where it's located. Each of those could be a feature that we boil down to a number. And there's going to be thousands of numbers, or dimensions, if you will, that might describe a given object. Then we take those numbers. And here we're really simplifying it down to just two dimensions. So we have dimension one and dimension two. And based on the vector that's been generated, we can compare the distance between any two objects. So, we have two houses up at the top that are fairly close together compared to the one at the bottom. And those go through, I would say a basic formula, but a fairly complicated formula to determine the distance between them and then be able to sort them by similarity in this case. Another example is when you have basic words. So, you have a category of fruit, category of animals, category of states. It's easy to kind of identify the distance between some of these entities or words. So we leverage different kind of transformers, and as a user, you don't really care about the transformer. Those can be generated or used or brought in from a variety of different other vendors. But the transformers are what create the vectors. And usually they're based on neural networks, but you basically can choose what transformer you use, and then it'll generate the vectors that end up being stored inside the database. So now, once you have those transformers, we can start loading in data. We can load in documents, we can load in images. The transformer will generate the models, and the vectors, and those get stored into the database, as I said before. So we have a text vector table, we have an image vector table. So now we can start searching not only by the other attributes that might be associated with this table, but by vector. So what we're looking at then, what we've added into 23AI is the ability to process vectors. So we can put that all with the same data with our structured information, because again, we're going to have other varchars and numbers for ID and address or whatever else it might be. But being able to store a new vector data type inside the database and then provide the SQL functions or operators to be able to manipulate those vectors, to be able to do analysis on those vectors, do approximate searches and create indexes on those vectors. That's what we've added to Oracle 23AI. So over here, I just also want to highlight, and we'll come back to this a little bit later, is Oracle's a converged database. It's not just a relational database. We're handling, your basic relational data, but we also are handling vector, JSON, spatial, graph, columns, a variety of different data types and models that are stored within one database. So now when we create a table, so we have a house for sale. It's going to have an ID, a price, a city location, and then a vector, right? So that's going to be based on all the features that it sees in this picture. Then we can do a simple query, right? So we're going to select whatever attributes from the house for sale table, order by vector distance. So all we're doing here, once we provide the input, is it'll give us a list of all the other homes that are most similar to the input that we've given it. So using vectors can be fairly simple once you understand, if you know SQL. Next, as I mentioned earlier, it's not just a vector database. It's a relational database. It's a spatial database. So we can add in other attributes where we're searching on price, we're searching on location. Maybe we might have a longitude latitude. So that's where we bring in Oracle Spatial. Or maybe we're also interested in doing a graph search where we want to be able to connect the this particular entity with how many other people are interested in this or have been looking at similar properties. So you can get fairly sophisticated in the type of queries that you run. So a lot of different use cases that you can think of. Similarity searches, as I've been talking about, not only with properties, but also looking for, say, candidates for a particular function. Computer vision, where we're being able to do now object detection or face recognition. Content-based filtering, where we're looking and analyzing inputs from people and be able to generate recommendations. Biomedical research, data analytics, natural language processing. That's been a hot topic for a while. And I'll talk about that a little bit more in the next slide. So here's something really cool that you're seeing over on the right is the ability to do natural language processing to generate SQL. So you'll see here that we're just doing a select AI show SQL. Let me pause this for a second here. So what we're doing is we allow the user to just type in natural language. Let me move this over. To just say, what are our top 10 streamed movies? This is just natural language. And then this is the SQL that's generated from that sentence that's effectively written. So it'll generate the SQL based on your natural language. Obviously, this makes things a lot simpler for application developers that don't know a lot of SQL or PL SQL for that matter. And even still, it leverages all the power of the database, not only for performance, but for security and availability. So, when you're using natural language processing or more specifically SQL generation here, it doesn't bypass any of those security controls. So a lot of interest. We've had a lot of analysts really highlight our capability here with AI vector search that we're really bringing generative AI to the masses. No longer making it something that's only rocket scientists or data scientists can do or leverage, but make it easy for anybody to use, for anybody to be able to add more capability to their databases. Going beyond just generating SQL, we can generate applications. So I don't know if you're familiar with Oracle at Apex, which stands for Application Express. Is the ability Application Express is a web-based rapid application development environment where you can just drag and drop and create fairly sophisticated applications all from your browser. And Apex runs all entirely inside the Oracle database. So if you own the Oracle database, you have Oracle database installed somewhere, you already have Apex. So with that, you can now leverage the generative AI capabilities to generate applications. So there's something called the Apex Assistant that really gets you started with creating kind of a boilerplate and understanding your data and being able to recommend the best representation as far as an application or a report. If there's a lot of interest in this particular area, we can definitely provide another session to talk about this. But just to sum, AI really helps it makes it a lot easier to make applications and analytics for any type of use case at any scale. And we haven't even really dived in very much into performance and how we can scale across multiple nodes. We'll talk about that later at the end of today's presentation. But before I go any further, are there any questions? All right.
Actually, a question did come up. Does this translation from natural language to SQL also applies to DB admin?
Apply to what?
Applies to the question is, does this translation from, and this is from 129, from it was asked at 129, does this translation from natural language to SQL also applies to database administrators?
Oh, yes. Well, let me make sure I understand the question correctly. So the natural language processing applies to writing SQL statements or query statements. It does not apply to DML or DDL for that matter. So if you wanted to insert data or create objects, or you want to create, say a new table, or you wanted to run a backup, that would be really cool. But it's not quite the natural language processing is not for that. There's other features that we provide that automate, doing backups or, adding a new server to a rack cluster. But yeah, the natural language processing applies specifically to SQL statements or specifically query statements. Great question, though.
Yeah, follow-on question. I'm not sure if that your response encompass this question, follow-on question, but does it apply to database administration tasks or just queries by developers and users?
Yeah, yeah. So just the queries, not database administrator task. Yeah, no, fantastic question. We're getting there, and in fact, to some degree, I feel like we're kind of beyond that because a lot of the database administration tasks have been fully automated away. So, for example, auto indexing, a feature that we added in 19C. That was something that took DBA, consumed a lot of time of DBAs, is trying to figure out which columns and tables to put indexes on and which ones to remove. Auto indexing took a lot of that labor away. With 19C, it was fairly, that again, that feature was new. We refined it quite a bit in 23 AI to make it even more intelligent about recognizing when to add or remove an index. Same goes with partitioning. Being able to automatically recommend what partitions or what keys to partition on. Um, and auto SQL tuning is another thing. So there's a lot of things that we are making a DBA's job easier by automating. But yeah, it's so that kind of negates the need to naturally, speak to the database and tell it what to do in this particular case.
All the questions
But yeah,
again.
so I mean, this actually was a nice segue to tell the things I was about to talk about here. So for the DBA, again, we're automating so many things. You see about 24 things that we've automated since 9i. And as I said at the very beginning, a lot of these features are actually leveraging the machine learning algorithms within the database to automate these particular functions. Sorry, was there another question there, JR?
Nope. I was just letting you know there was no further
Great.
questions this time.
Awesome. So I don't know if we've had any presentations on the autonomous services within the Oracle Cloud. But as I keep reiterating, we've automated nearly everything so that the DBAs no longer have to worry about I mean, I know some people, love doing patches and updates and trying to figure out how to reinstall yet another database on, a Kubernetes cluster or something like that. Um, but with the Oracle Cloud Autonomous Services, it really simplifies a lot of those tasks or does away with them altogether. So that way, DBAs can now start to work on creating data models, working on trying to create views or catalogs of databases for the end users to be able to have easier access to the data that they have. Because a big problem that we have with today is being able to collect a lot of data, but to find the connections between all that data. So if the database administrator now becomes more of a data steward, that brings more value to the organization. Okay, so we spent most of my time so far talking about the AI capabilities. There's a lot of application developer features within 23 AI as well. We talked a little bit about Application Express, and that's probably one of our primary tools here at Oracle for building applications. But the database provides a lot of things to kind of really improve or enhance what developers are able to do. So I talked about this a little bit earlier, about Oracle being a converged database. Yeah, there's a lot of single-use proprietary databases that do, just JSON or just big data or just blockchaining. And if you want something that does two or three of those things, then you kind of figure out a way to integrate Redshift and DocumentDB and Postgres. But then it becomes some of an integration nightmare. Whereas with a converged database, everything is already integrated for you. And I got a little bit creative with trying to be a alliterative, not a, yeah, I guess alliterative and rhyming with, that the issue isn't so much collecting data. We collect tons of data. The issue is trying to connect the data, find the relationships with the data so that it can intelligently co-direct you to solving bigger problems that you really need to solve. I thought I was clever in coming up with that. But anyways, we want users to be able to be more empowered and not have developers constantly swamped with trying to figure out how to integrate the plumbing. Oracle database being converged simplifies all of that. Okay, so another way that we've been growing the multi-model capabilities of the database is adding in JSON, as well as graph. So those are things we kind of could do before. You could kind of still store a JSON in what we call a blob or a clob inside the database, but the database didn't really understand what a JSON document was, or for that matter, what a graph is, which I'll talk about in a little bit later. Um, but now we treat JSON as a native object, just like we do a number or a varchar. So, because there's again JavaScripting, object-oriented programming, the best kind of storage format for those kind of applications is a hierarchical document. So what we see over here on the right is a JSON document. You can kind of see the hierarchy where you have for a particular student embedded in it courses or that student's schedule. But when we break that down into a relational format, again, you have students in one table, courses in another table, teachers in a whole nother table. With 23 AI, what we're able to do is map back and forth between these two depending on your application. But we store all the data just once. And that's important to understand. We're not storing it twice. We store everything in its relational format. But from the developer's perspective or from the end user's perspective, it's whatever they want. They can choose to see it this way as a JSON format, or they can choose to see it as a relational format. It's up to you as far as what works best for your application or your needs. So you can do reads by just doing a simple get, or you can do even edits. So you can do a put. So you can use JSON and you can modify your JSON document, and Oracle automatically takes care of updating the underlying tables and making sure that everything is consistent when it comes to modifying, because in this case, you might be updating multiple tables, not just the student table, but also the courses and so on and so forth. A variety of different ways to access this capability as far as through the APIs. So there's, we have an API for Mongo. I know Mongo used to be pretty popular until they upped their prices significantly. So we provide a one-for-one API for MongoDB. So if you have any applications that are currently running on MongoDB, they should run unchanged against the Oracle database with our JSON duality views. Or you can use the REST data services, or just using simple SQL and JSON. The other thing too that we do, since we have the data type JSON, So before I showed you, we had a vector data type that we've added. Now we've added a JSON data type. So here you're actually embedding, the document as a type. And now we have this dot notation to be able to pull out attributes within that document through a SQL statement. So we can pull out the tera group that's stored within this JSON document in a simple SQL query. Okay, so that's JSON relational duality views. Very huge new capability that's added that we've added into 23 AI. And what always makes me happy to work for Oracle is we don't charge you we don't charge you for these additional capabilities. In the past, this would be a whole separate data options that you'd have to license. But now we provide this capability for free. You just have to upgrade to be able to have that capability. So it's not a separately licensed thing. Um, so the new AI capabilities like Vector, JSON, they come free. You don't have to pay for them. And a lot of people don't realize that. A lot of people aren't getting the full value out of their database because A, they don't know it's there, or B, they thought they had to pay for it. And same goes for property graphs as I move on to that. So a lot of cool things within the property graph area. The main thing is that there's a new SQL standard called SQL PGQ. This guy right here. So we are the first, Oracle is the first database that has been that is compliant with that new standard. So that allows you to basically run property graph queries inside of a SQL statement. So let's talk, just like the vectors, I'm going to kind of explain what a graph is for those who are kind of new to this. Um, so think of a graph as, being able to connect different entities. So social networks, friend of a friend. Um, in this case, we're looking at bank transactions and how money is being transferred from one individual or one account to another, or road networks. So looking at transportation between different locations via different means. So again, we're trying to find new ways of connecting entities or data sets. As I talked about earlier, we have lots of data that we're collecting. We need to find better ways to connect data. And so Oracle makes that really easy, not only by having all the data stored in one place, but also providing the means to connect those different attributes. So Oracle is it really the first database to implement the standard SQL PGQ that gives you the ability to create graphs based on standard relational tables. And in addition to the graphs in the SQL PGQ standard, we provide a ton of algorithms to help identify relationships between objects or entities. So there's Deep Walk, GraphWise, and dozens of others for helping you connect what we call vertices or vertexes and the edges that connect those vertex. So here's an example. So we have a table of bank accounts, and it might have a variety of different attributes. In this case, we're just looking at ID and the balance. Then we have another table of bank transfers. And so we define the vertex as the accounts and the edges as the transfers between accounts. So now, we've created this graph based on those two tables, and we might have multiple edge types because maybe, and different vertex tables as well, because we could have a people table, we could have a location table that we also want to link via ownership or via purchase. So there's different ways to link things together. But in this case, we're just keeping it simple, bank accounts and transfers. And then when we run a query, not super complex to understand this, but basically what we're doing is we're trying to find all the links between two accounts, V1 and V2 in this case, which are B and E. So this will provide to me all transfers with 1, 2, or 3 hops. So between 1 and 3 hops between these two accounts. And it'll provide me a full list of those paths. This is what it would have looked like without PGQ. If we had to write all this using SQL, it's a flipping ton of joins and unions. Here you see 40 plus lines that need to be written to do what can be done in 4 lines with PGQ. So this really simplifies a lot of work for developers. A lot of other application development enhancements within the database are something called SQL macros. Those basically enable you to do a lot more with Oracle functions and stored procedures. Priority transactions. This has been a capability that a lot of my customers have been asking for a long time. And that's being able to prioritize certain transactions over others. Inter-instance resource management. So as you start to consolidate more and more databases on the same hardware, being able to do resource management between those databases so that one database doesn't consume all the resources over another. And then as we start to move into Kubernetes and microservices, there's a lot of kind of multi-phase transactions that occur as you have one microservice do an insert, another one do a delete or an update, but that's all one transaction. Oracle 23AI recognizes that as one transaction and will commit or fail over or roll back that transaction as one entity as opposed to seeing each microservice operating independently. Boolean data types, fairly self-explanatory, but being able to just have a true false attribute data type. So that way you can just do a select from where this particular customer is active or not active. You don't have to set up where X equals Y anymore. Something called lock-free column reservation. So it's kind of a soft lock on a row. Wider tables. So now that there's more and more data that we're collecting, either through Internet of Things or for machine learning, which has tons and tons of attributes, now we can have over 4,000 columns in a single table. And JavaScript, as I mentioned, JavaScripting and Python are becoming the most popular languages to programming for programmers, at least coming out of college these days. We've added JavaScript directly into the database. So now you can program in PL/SQL, Java, and JavaScript, and you can anticipate Python being added in the future. So this is the quick little example of what JavaScript looks like in the database, or with 23AI. So right here you see the JavaScript code that we basically pass into the Graal multilingual engine to run that code. Okay, so someone was asking about how's life easier for DBAs. I talked about how things are automated more and more and more, but there's a few other things as well. We'll talk a little bit. Yeah,
I,
question.
yeah, actually, but not sure when it would be a good time to chime in to ask this question, but question that came through was um, if Oracle Database 23 AI, the download file to install 23 AI Enterprise Edition, the one listed as free download. I'm assuming he's alluding to the Oracle website. Um, is there a download file to install 23 AI Enterprise Edition?
No, there is not. That is, yeah, so not yet. As I mentioned at the beginning, 23AI is currently only available on the Oracle Cloud and on engineered systems, a database appliance and Exadata. And then just recently at Oracle Cloud World, we announced that, we announced a partnership with AWS and Google and Microsoft where they can run 23AI through, how do I explain this? Through a connection to the Oracle Cloud. So basically, they can run Oracle 23 AI as a service So AWS offers an Oracle 23 AI service effectively that connects to the Oracle cloud. I kind of mumbled my way through that. But to answer the question, no, it's not downloadable. I don't know the time frame on that. I believe it'll probably be 2025 at the earliest, but it won't be this calendar year.
And I guess a follow-on question to that would be, is there a class, or I think you made a reference to Oracle upgrade services, but or is there a class or something similar that covers how to upgrade a non-PDB 19C single instance to 23 AI?
Mm. Yeah, so two things going on there. So, talking about upgrading or migrating from a non-multi-tenant tenant database to a pluggable database. So yeah, there's plenty of tutorials online and guides to walk you through that process as well. If you're using Oracle Enterprise Manager, it provides the tools or basically a wizard to walk you through that process. Then the second part is doing the upgrade from 19C to 23 AI. Yeah, so there's plenty of documentation on that. Is there a class? I'll have to get back to you on whether or not there's a class. Um, yeah, so I'll get back to you on that.
Sounds good.
All right. Let's see. I'm going to try to blaze through the rest of this as quick as I can. I got a lot more I'd like to talk about. I'm down to almost 5 minutes here. So, in database firewall, that basically, again, that's a network firewall that's inside the database. So rather than having a firewall that's between the end user and the database, this actually sits at the last, right up against the database effectively. So it protects the last mile from insider threats, monitoring for specific SQL injection attacks. And the grammar engine can be very specific as far as what you wanting to monitor or block. Read-only users, developer role, schema privileges. This is all about trying to simplify grants and privileges that you give users. Because in the past, you had to do individual grants to be able to update or access different tables, to perform certain SQL operations, and you were never quite sure if you missed or forgot something. This simplifies everything, specifically with schema privileges. Now you can grant user specific access to a schema as opposed to trying to identify all the tables within that schema. I know that one made a lot of DBAs really happy. Let's see. Moving on, I'm going to pass over a bunch of slides here. Got other meetings coming up here. Okay, moving on. Blockchain tables. So this is something that's been backported in 19C, but the ability to create a tamper-resistant, immutable table, that's now part of the Oracle database. There were specific databases that, kind of already kind of come and gone that had this feature, but now we've embedded this in the database, so that way you can create kind of immutable logs of activity or transactions that are occurring for specific data sets. Certain manageability enhancements that we've done. So shrinking a table space. So we had a shrink table space command before, but it only shrink the end of the table space. But if there were unused spaces between segments or tables that were stored in table space, those were never ever reclaimed. But now we can move objects around to shrink table spaces effectively. Real-time SQL management to be able to automatically repair poorly written SQL. Rolling patches, that's something we've always had, but there were also non-rolling patches that weren't rolling enabled. And so now we've made it rolling patches a little bit more. Now there's more patches that can be truly rolling enabled. Enhanced messaging and logging to again help with troubleshooting for specific issues. What else? Uh, okay, yeah, let me spend my last couple of minutes talking about this. So some mission critical application enhancements. So there's a new feature called True Cache. I don't know if you're familiar with Oracle Coherence or times 10 in-memory database. So True Cache is very similar to that in that it provides distributed caches that sit in front of the database to provide higher performance by caching frequently accessed data, but also providing moving that data closer to the end user as you have distributed global enterprises. Active, globally distributed database is taking sharding to the next level. I mentioned this a little bit earlier when we first added sharding back in 12C, where you can split the database up into multiple pieces. But now we use a mechanism called raft replication, fairly similar to Golden Gate or active data guard, but it's kind of its own protocol to replicate subsets of data between distributed shards of a database. And then readable per PDB standbys. So this is, again, taking active data guard to the next level, where you used to have one container database that was primary, and then a second container database that was the standby. But now we're at the PDB level, not the container level. So you can have one PDB in one container be the primary and the PDB and another database be the standby. So this is something that's going to look a lot better in a picture. Let's see here. Okay. So over here in Boston, we have two containers, one in Boston and one in Virginia, each with 3 pluggable databases. For the HCM, the Human Capital Management Database, we have the primary over here in Virginia, but the standby in Boston, and vice versa for the Supply Chain Management Database. What this buys you really is that you're able to leverage both servers more effectively. Where one is typically just sitting around idle because these are all standby pluggable databases. Now we can have some of these be primary and some of these be primary. And if there's ever a failure of this server, then you still have all the standbys and the primaries on the other server in Virginia. So just a lot more flexibility in how you leverage your resources and be able to fully utilize those resources. I wish we had more time, but we pretty much covered 90% of everything. As I mentioned, 23A, there's a lot of new capabilities here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. But I want to really thank you for your time. If there's any final questions before we wrap things up, I'll hand it back over to you.
Doesn't look like there are. I know we want to be conscious of everyone's time since they're coming out at the end of the hour. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Daryl, for the presentation, and thank you, everyone else, for joining in. Like I said before, we will be posting this in the DLT marketplace, but we'll also be sending out copies to the individuals who requested it. But thanks so much for jumping on today's webinar, and look forward to seeing you in next month's Tech Spotlight. Have a good day, everyone.